Getting promoted from League One into the Championship, now that is a big challenge. Sometimes we end up making the same kind of mistakes. On today's episode of Gamechanger, that's where we're heading. We're going to Swindon. My name is Daljit. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the channel. You can also find me streaming not here but on another more dedicated live streaming channel where I craft tactics with you. Yes, with your saves. And I take a look at training. Yes, your training saves. And on Fridays, I get a chance to play with my playthroughs. My playthroughs, well, they're a bit different. They are either tactically orientated or training orientated. On this channel, I do shorter form content, tips, tricks, hacks, guides, and game changer. A chance for me to jump into your save and give you my point of view in 30 minutes, or at least I try to. Today we have a save that's coming to us from Dale. Now, he's managing Swindon. He's done a really good job. He managed to get them promoted from League 2 to League 1. He finished champions, but now he's struggling in League 1, which isn't a really big surprise because it is a very challenging league. Whenever we want to sign players to walk into our squad, we kind of need to know what are we looking for in terms of attributes. So there's always a kind of a benchmark that we should try and aim for. We are in League 1, so the average attribute value should be around 12. You find this out by going to squad depth and team comparison. In terms of jumping reach, his team is the lowest in the league with Oxford being 12. Off the ball, the worst in the league is Bradford with 8 and 11 is the best with Barnsley. Swindon are 9, an area of concern. Then we have positioning where 14 is the best. Swindon and Wigan round out the worst with 11. In a nutshell, attributes wise, Swindon are at the tail end of the league and can only do well if they strengthen the core areas of their team or play with numbers at the back. Avoiding relegation in League 1 has to be a realistic target for this team. Occasionally you might hear squeals of delight coming from my kids who are playing downstairs in the hall. They're playing football. Something tells me I'm in trouble. Dale knows that strengthening his side is key, so he put out a call to as many free agents to come join his club. Now, underdog sides aren't always going to have the pick of the bunch. After all, which good player is going to turn around and say, hey man, I want to join you, you're about to get relegated? So prioritizing players is the way to go. Focusing on physical attributes first is always a good way to start. And my wife just came home and I heard her yell, so I'm in trouble. It appears you've added emergency cover with this lot of players, and it's something I struggle with myself when I'm doing lower league football. I end up signing players who probably don't end up playing. So this is something that you want to be careful of because it adds to the wage bill. When January comes around the corner, you want to have the flexibility in your wage budget to go out there and make some signings. So sometimes it's better to play with fewer. You expand your squad in January. That way, you are in a stronger position to identify weak links in your team. So let's take a look at some of these players. First player, Radar Johnson. He's too slow, poor positioning. Tom Suarez, 35 years old. Maybe you shouldn't have bothered. His anticipation just doesn't make it worthwhile. A mistake a lot of people make in lower league football, signing youth players. Right. The only time you sign a youth player to join your team, especially in lower league football, is if that youth player is good enough to play in your first team. You do not stockpile because chances are when you get promoted, that player standard will drop, and then you're hoping that he develops. But chances are your training facilities, your coaches, they aren't exactly good enough yet for you to extract the value you can from these players. So you end up sending them on loans, hoping that they might improve, but the chances are they'll be sent to teams that are a tier weaker than you as well. So in my opinion, the best thing to do about youth players is to sign them when you are in the championship. At least then it makes a lot more sense because you are in a stronger position in the championship financially as well. So what I would recommend is waiting until you get there before you start looking at youth players, or at least trying to stockpile them. Youssef Oyebode. He's an interesting youth signing, but at this level, even youth players need to be decent enough to play. So unless you sign him to play, don't bother. You've got to be absolutely merciless if you want to get promoted out of League One. So there is never any room for sentimentality. Now, who doesn't know Danny Guthrie? But his lack of pace and his low bravery now make him more a liability than an asset. Maybe an emergency backup player for your team. Well, you didn't make bad signings all the way. That's the good news. The next few are the signings of the season. We've got Reece James, Tyler Smith, Jordan Graham, and George Dobson. You avoided making mistake number 2 in lower league football, which is not to have a financial buffer. It's absolutely critical if you want to be promoted out of League One. You need the flexibility of being able to make a signing in the January transfer window, and you've done exactly that. The good news with all these signings is that you left yourself with that buffer. The first few signings are all emergency players. I can see that right now, and I guess that's what you plan for. In terms of finances, the buffer is about 13K a week for a player that you might want to sign in January, so that's something that you want to pay attention to. Naturally, the big challenge will be those training facilities. Because when you're a League One side, let's be realistic, not a lot of clubs are going to come knocking on the door to pay a lot of big bucks for one of your players. So you got to manage that wage bill really carefully because you're trying to increase the overall balance in your club so that you can hit 3 million profit every year. This allows you to go and upgrade your training facilities, and when you're in the championship, those facilities become very important because you need to improve the players that are playing in your club. Your training has been set up quite well. Your coaches are doing the right things. All you got to make sure of is leading up to your big matches, you have match preparation activities, because who doesn't want that upcoming bonus, right? Another long-term challenge that you might want to address is signing players with the right kind of personality. So what a lot of players do is they go and sign senior players, and that can be challenging because what's the point of signing a player that's in his late 30s as a great personality if you can't play him? So what I tend to do nowadays in FM21, which is kind of new because I wasn't really doing it in FM17 and 18, is I like to sign youth players with great personalities. I make them vice captains and I send them for leadership courses. I don't even know whether that really works, but at least making them vice captains pushes them up in terms of hierarchy in the team, and they end up being good mentors for the future. It's something that you might want to consider whenever you start signing these young players. Condition, they need to be good enough to play. Now it's time to take a look at your matches. You've got a challenge ahead of you. No one says that you shouldn't be playing the same formation when you get promoted, right? I mean, it was the formation that got you promoted in the first place. So you're now in the new league. You want to play the same formation with the same players. Therein lies the biggest challenge. Because once you get promoted, that formation may have been good enough in League 2. When in League 1, you probably will need better players in all the positions because it's still going to be a challenge for you higher up the leagues. So it becomes really important to be able to master the transitions which tell you which are the weakest areas in your team. So identifying failed transitions becomes very, very important, and that's what we're going to do next. If you're watching the show to this point, thank you very much. I've got a surprise for you. Now, how many of you want me to do a live stream focusing on transitions, important transitions to focus on for various kinds of formations? Drop me a note in the comments below and tell me which formations you struggle with, because the focus of a live stream then will become those formations, identifying failed transitions, understanding why certain transitions are important and what you want to look out for. It might help you guys. Yeah, just let me know. Dale, tactically, you've gone out to play the same formation you played in League 2, right now in League 1. But what I want to do right now is revisit League 2. You lost to MK Dons. So I want to identify failed transitions there and try and see whether we can see some patterns unfolding. It's the 3rd minute of the game and Swindon are attacking. You want to see an attack end in a shot or a cross. What we don't want to see is this, a failed transition right at the edge of the area, which normally spells doom. If I pause it at this time, which is about 2:40, you can see your central midfielder, he's got the ball, but his passing options or his choices to unlock the defense are limited. Playing a pass centrally is risky. He can only go right or move up the pitch, which potentially makes things worse. Your midfielder plays the pass to Payne, who then plays it short to Hope, who takes too long to release the pass to the fullback. This transition is what we all want to avoid. The attacking team has pushed its players and is about to enter the last phase of its attacking transition. If you fail to play a key pass here, you leave yourself open. What you really wanted to see was an earlier pass from the defensive midfielder to the wide player, or you wanted your players closer together in terms of width. Since you're away from home, the goal really has got to be keeping the ball effectively to try and unlock sides, or if you want to just soak them in and hit them on the break, we've got to be able to see one or two of those things. The central areas of the pitch are too congested with the tactic you're using. One can play these kind of systems, but the demands placed on your players will be high. They'll need good attributes like composure, first touch, balance, passing, and off the ball. This failed transition makes me pause and wonder whether the tactic is really good enough. The second goal you concede is off a defensive corner. Having two players standing on the post is completely useless in this version of Football Manager. The keeper is a puncher, so when he takes command of the area and opts to punch out, he leaves you open to the long shot. This is a keeper who could do with extra help in the area. So we've taken a look at MK Dons from last season, right? So we know it's a transition, the build-up phase, not giving yourself too many options. Match is a bit congested, keeper is a bit dodgy, needs a bit of help. What about this season? 16th for a side that's going to struggle, that's still not too bad. You've done well in some games, forcing the draw. When you're a newly promoted side, you want to learn how to master the clean sheet, because if you fail to win, at least you get a point. Looking at the numbers, it's pretty even. But the thing that stands out for me is the fact that you're giving about 0.2 chances away every single game, which means the opposition usually have one good goal scoring chance every single match. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring that number down to about 0.15, or at least make it harder for sides to score goals against you. Because if I'm looking just at every single match that you've played, clean sheets are a bit of a rarity in League One for you. I can see that you've got three versions of a 4-3-3. It doesn't look that bad, but in all three, the pattern is exactly the same. I mean, you don't really have a different version for a counter-attacking setup, because if you look at all three tactics, they're all basically the same with slight variations. I mean, all of them depend on the AP punching through, right? If you look at this, and then you've got congestion going on with the AP going through the middle, inside forward coming through the middle, inside forward and attack coming through the middle here, and then you got inside inverted wing back over here. I mean, how's the DLP going to find attacking options? There's nothing wrong with playing congested systems, but you need the players for it. You need players who can dance their way past defenses, skipping tackles, beating three players in the penalty area just to create a shot for themselves. The problem is, you're a newly promoted side. Your attributes show you nearly at the bottom of the rung in League One. What you're trying to do is outplay better teams in the penalty area, and this is giving you issues. So what we need to do is we need to go out, or rather I need to go out and create a simpler tactical system for you that leverages on certain strengths you might have. More importantly, keeping a clean sheet. So how do I do in the next couple of matches? So tactically, what we've done is we made a slightly different system. No real PIs here except for advanced forward closing down, more inside forward on attack. We've got a winger on support. He's marking a specific position, usually the fullback on the left. He's also told to cross aim to the far post, which is this area where players are going to be attacking. Now, the DLP is a specifically chosen role. We want somebody who's going to hold his position instead of vacating the space. We don't need somebody attacking the central areas. What we want to do is draw teams in and then hit them on the break, and then use these two players to attack the lines. We've got a DM on defense, which is relatively, it's a good role to choose sometimes. We want something simple. And then we've got a fullback on support on the left flank, who is also which is also a simple role. We don't want to have too many complicated roles at the moment, but this is enough because what we are banking on is keeping a strong back five when we need to and hitting teams quickly. So we've also got a fullback on attack, bombing down the flanks with a covering defender on his left. Now, your team instructions are going to be quite straightforward. It's going to be a standard line of engagement, a high defensive line. We want to draw teams into an aggressive block. So we're using tighter marking and get stuck in. Then we're telling the keeper to have a simple distribution plan to the fullbacks. And then we're also telling the team to play counter-attacking football. We have not opted for counter-pressing or regroup at this point in time because I don't feel that you need this instruction in your team. We're going to have, ideally, you want to play with either mix or low crosses. Now, low crosses, I will do against weaker competition. Mix is something I will go for against sides that are much better than us. We're opting for play for set pieces as well as dribble less. Standard directness and tempo should be standard as well, with the width being standard as well. Keeping things relatively easy. We don't want to choose right defense. You want the ball to move faster than the players. The idea here is to hit teams quickly. The biggest challenge we have with the Swindon team is actually going to be the goalkeeper, because your goalkeeper choices aren't very good. Both your goalkeepers are pretty poor for this league. What you need is a goalkeeper who's got decent aerial reach, handling, command of area, and reflexes. At the moment, your keeper has got a problem dealing with balls coming into the box, defending against crosses. So what you really want to try and do is try and get yourself, the priority has to be to go get yourself a new keeper, because you don't have any depth in your squad as far as keepers are concerned. You have a keeper on loan, M. Boruk, who's about the best choice, but his handling is 9, which means he can't really deal with crosses. He might tip them, he might punch them, but that leaves you struggling against long shots. So if I were you, goalkeeper is definitely up there as a high priority. Even using things like tight marking, I'm a bit worried about using tight marking with your team. I'm playing in the lower leagues, sometimes I try and avoid using tight marking. I don't want my players to get skinned too easily. So you might want to consider removing tight marking as well where you can. I would try to slowly improve acceleration in my team as a part of team training by adding one physical session every single week. Overall, though, I think tactically, if you were to stick to something like a winger to give you a bit of width down one flank, you should be fine. With a fullback attacking, we can afford to play with Twine here in midfield. Even though he doesn't have strong mentals and tackling, we'll bring on Ryan McLaughlin. Okay, so he's another good option for you down the right as a fullback. And we've scored our third goal. Quite lucky. This is one of the reasons why I prefer playing with an AF in the lower leagues. If I'm going to be using a 4-3-3 like the formation that you have, I would also consider other formations like the 4-4-2 DM. But I doubt that you have enough holding players in midfield who can do that job. Because the right flank is such a weak flank, there's a reason why I strongly recommend playing a player on cover duty on that side of the pitch. Well, we've done well. And we've managed to win 3 matches on the trot. So, looking at our results so far, I've beaten Northampton 3-0, beaten Crew 1-0, and Blackpool 3-1, managing to keep at least 2 clean sheets. The biggest challenge for Swindon is this. You've got a keeper that you need to find. You also need cover in the fullback areas. I would also suggest starting to look for an utility player who can play as a central midfielder. These are 3 roles that you might want to look at. An average dispersion of about 10 to 11 for attributes should be fine, but these should cover most of the important mental and physical attributes. The challenge here right now for you is that DLP position. You don't have a lot of good players, and those players that you have at the moment, well, they don't tackle. So this means that you can't, if you wanted to push him out as a central midfielder on attack, it's fine, but the problem then becomes your fullback position, because you don't have somebody who can cover that space really well, because most of them don't have very strong mentals. Physically, they may be okay, but then they're physically great, but they can't tackle again. So it's like you're stuck in a bad place. So the I would recommend looking for a fullback at least fast enough and who can tackle. He might not have great mentals, but at least then he can tackle, right? So he can get back and do that work just in case he needs to. As far as the keeper is concerned, I would focus on a keeper that's got aerial reach and handling first. Now, reflexes are good, but what's the point of having great reflexes if a keeper can't even collect the ball in the air? Because a lot of the time you're going to be dealing with crosses into the box. They can come from corners, they can come from set pieces, and if the keeper can't even collect the ball in the air, then what use is he? So you really need to get a keeper who has some handling. Handling is actually a very important attribute for keepers. I would like to thank everybody for taking the time out to watch today's show. I hope you found it useful, and if you have any questions, I stream 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on a different channel. Links are below. Please check it out. You can always pop in, ask me a question. Let's try not to revisit inverted winger inside forward again. Guys, please, it's happening every week. Okay. So thank you for your support. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.